Applause.
Thank you guys so much. Yes, Luke? Okay, great. We're streaming. Guys, welcome to the Walkaway Thought Revolution College Campus Tour, UC Berkeley. Again, I want to just take a minute to say thank you so much to those of you who showed up tonight, who participated in the conversation when we were tabling today. We were standing outside. We had some signs talking about various cultural issues from the transgender LGBT community to what race issues to economic policy, Trump, etc. And we're going to kind of get into all of it tonight. I do want to say what kind of makes Walkaway, I think, different and unique and special is that we're actually, despite a lot of misreporting about us, we're not a Republican organization. We're not even necessarily really a conservative organization, and we're not a pro-Trump organization. Although all of us that you'll be talking to tonight, it is a movement of former liberals walking away from the political left, walking away from the Democratic Party. But we've always said with Walkaway since day one, Walkaway is a journey, not a destination. What we mean by that is that we encourage people to engage in their own path of free thinking, of doing their own homework, doing their own research, taking a journey away from the manipulation and exploitation of the left-wing media, of the false narratives, I think, of the Democrats, and honestly, the erroneous and false belief system of liberalism, I think that so many of us bought into. Everyone on the panel tonight has had an awakening of some sort that led them to walk away from the Democratic Party. We'll get into that, and we'll get into issues that are affecting us right now today, going into what's happening in the next couple of weeks. So with that, I'd love to introduce the panel that we have with us tonight. Who's gonna sit over here? Does it matter? Oh, Gothics. Ladies and gentlemen, YouTuber Gothics. And then we'll bring up what next? Mikey Harlow? Yeah, why not? Mike Harlow. And please welcome Natalie Beisner, who is also a new employee of the office. And yeah, so that with that, we'll kind of just, I think, go this direction and come talk about our experiences leaving the left. And oh, there's a Q&A at the end as well. So please, we'd love to hear from you guys if you have questions, comments, if you want to argue with anything that you heard. Fair game.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for coming here. If you were here earlier, we really appreciate you guys coming out, even though you disagree with us. My name is Vanessa, but most people know me online as Gothics. I am a content creator. I got my start being a Twitch streamer, just playing video games, and that's literally all I did, 9 to 5, until I had an opinion online that rubbed people the wrong way. And the opinion was me questioning why everyone was calling people racist for disagreeing with Disney casting The Little Mermaid as a black actress. So if you had any reservations or questions about that, you were automatically racist, and I thought that was a little bit odd. You know, I think there's nuance to the conversation to be had, and people didn't want to hear it. And then fast forward to 2020, where we have COVID and Black Lives Matter happening, I'm wondering, why is the news telling us we have to stay home and sign the curve, but you can go out and protest and booty shake for George Floyd, and that's totally fine? It didn't make any sense to me. And again, I'm just questioning, like, what's going on with this? It's not making any sense. And then I started going down a rabbit hole. I discovered people like Thomas Sowell, Booker T. Washington, and I realized that the political left for generations has been curating this certain identity politics ideology to captivate the minds of Black Americans, so then Democrats can wave a little carrot over their head every year and expect them to vote. And I'm just not okay with that. And so, yeah, I walked away from the left. I am politically homeless. I don't identify with any political party. I just go where the truth is. And I'll move on. And that is pretty much it. It's okay. I gave you a really fast version.
Sure. My story really began kind of, and people have heard this like 1,000 times, so I'll actually make mine pretty quick, but my story began really after the 2016 election, because I was a two-time Barack Obama voter, voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016, and like many, many people, when Donald Trump got elected, I thought the sky was falling, I thought America was doomed. Okay, we'll take questions at the end, but yeah, what? Go ahead.
Why Hillary in 2016?
Okay, yeah. Save questions for the end, though, yeah. I voted for Hillary in 2016 because it never dawned on me to vote for anybody except for a Democrat. I didn't even think that a Republican was an option to me. I'm a gay man. I grew up in a small town in Nebraska, and when I was growing up, the messages that I received early on were that the Democrats are the party of
between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, especially if you're from Blue City, Republican is not even a consideration to you. Democrat is just the default. So of course those were my only two choices. And I was very undecided and wanted to educate myself on the two candidates, their history, their records, what they would do. And I found that no matter which of them I dug into, I wasn't allowed to. So you find something about Bernie Sanders you don't love. That's racist. You better not say that. Something about Hillary Clinton you don't love. That's sexist. And I've just always been the type of person that you tell me not to do something, I'm gonna do it. You tell me not to say something, I'm gonna say it louder. And so I just kept researching and researching, and then I didn't vote for Trump in 2016. I just kind of threw my vote away third party because I was like, I can't stand all these people. I had a lot of doubts about Trump because I watched every season of Celebrity Apprentice, and I was not happy with his choices. So I didn't think he would be a great president, but he outdid my expectations. And then once he was, we'll have questions after, Mr. Pope.
The stream isn't on.
What's that?
The stream isn't on.
Okay.
I just checked on YouTube.
Appreciate it, thank you. Just
What was I?
yeah. Celebrity
Oh yeah,
Apprentice.
authorization point. Anyway, once he, so I didn't vote for him, but then once he became president, the things that you would hear about him doing versus what he was actually doing and trying to find the raw data and the raw footage and the raw facts were completely night and day. And so I just kept researching more. What do you mean there is no Muslim ban? This was an Obama-era policy. And I very quickly learned that they really only have one tactic, which is emotional manipulation. So overnight, I became a racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic Nazi. I always tell them only homophobic is true. But yeah, it became very clear to me how they pit minority groups against each other. Minorities are their human shields, is how they effectively manipulate people. And it's only because, it's only so effective because we're not a racist country, we're not a homophobic country, we're not any of these things, that those words have so much sway over people. And so I really learned the destructive impact of both their policies and their messaging, pitting every group against every group. And I would say, look at the results of it. You have every group fighting with each other. We can no longer agree on basic facts. We can no longer agree what a man or a woman is. And they just pander to every group. By running Kamala Harris, they're pandering very hard for the gay vote by nominating a whore. So, anyway, that's basically my story.
Hi, I'm Natalie. Thank you guys all for being here. I come from Southern California. I've been there my whole life, and I was an actress for a while. And I'm also a millennial, and I feel like everyone in Southern California who's a millennial and then also involved in acting at all, you know, you kind of just are reflexively Democrat, you're reflexively liberal. And I kind of just took it as gospel truth that if you're a compassionate person, you vote Democrat. I didn't really think about it. Every 4 years, I would go vote for the Democrat candidate for president and then not even know anything else on the ballot at all or care. I voted for Obama, I voted for Hillary Clinton. And then 2020 happened, and in March 2020, I lost both of my jobs overnight, and I never saw those jobs again, although I didn't necessarily know that that was going to be the case at the time. And I complied with everything that was asked of me. I did everything to a T. I didn't visit my family. I had a grandmother dying alone, not from COVID, just dying alone unnecessarily. But I followed all the rules, and then summer 2020 came around. And I was told, we were all actually told that we could go out and protest or riot, especially in Los Angeles, but we still couldn't go to work. And I thought that was crazy because I need to go to work. And I'm actually someone who needs a paycheck and can't just survive on what the government gives me. Need family, maybe need to not have my grandmother die alone, which she ended up doing. And, you know, I watched as the Democrats in my city, I mean, certainly it was Republicans too at the time, I'm not excusing that at all, but I watched as the politicians in my city and all the talking heads and even some of the medical professionals, as they said, do not shut down these protests, which I actually agree with. I think that you should have your peaceful protest, and BLM would have been an organization that, as a liberal, as a lifelong Democrat, I would have supported. But every time that I just ask the question about why can't I go to work? Is this really as deadly as they say? I was called racist and selfish by all the people who knew me and loved me and had done theater with me and knew the kind of woman that I was. And it blew my mind. I was told to read How to Be an Anti-Racist and White Privilege, which in fact I did, and they're trash, they're garbage. You know, because and that was one of the reasons I had left acting years earlier, that I had seen this push for racial diversity above everything else, and this push to only tell a certain kind of story. And I don't mind racial diversity at all, but I don't think it should be your top goal. And I do not, the first time I heard white privilege was when I was a Democrat, and I had drank all the Kool-Aid, but I don't identify with white privilege. You know, I'm blessed in a lot of ways, in the same way we all are, to be able-bodied. I have a family who loves me, I'm an American, but none of that has to do with the color of my skin. And my family has struggled immensely, my parents have struggled immensely, I have struggled immensely, I'm sure everyone in this room has. And so that was kind of the start of it. And then when it came to 2020, and it was like my experience didn't matter, and I was one of millions of Americans of every color who we knew relatively early on we were going to be okay. And I'm sorry for the people who weren't okay with COVID, but it affected a very specific part of the population, and to tell me that I couldn't go to work. And in Los Angeles, it didn't end. You know, if this had been a blip on the radar, maybe I would have stayed a Democrat and just forgiven it. But Los Angeles was in a mask mandate for 2 straight years. I tried to go back to work early. I got off unemployment when I could have stayed on, and I ended up getting fired because I didn't want to take a shot. And I had tried to go back to work early to another job. We had vaccine passports. For a period of about 6 months, I could not go into a bar or restaurant and be served indoors. I had to sit outdoors if there was room, no matter what the weather was, or I could take it to go. And obviously that's not the end of the world, but it's also not American. And there were many jobs that I couldn't work. I couldn't go to events. And I have lived in LA for 10 years, and I've lived in California my entire life and paid taxes there and been a law-abiding citizen. And that is egregious. So I walked away from the Democrat Party because they never said sorry. They've never apologized. They've never reckoned with that. And certainly, as I said, we all did bad in the first 2 weeks, but the Democrats milked it for every dang drop that it was worth, and then some. It was horrible living in LA. It was horrible. And the fact that that happened, I still can't believe it. I'll never ever forget it at all. And then you start, at the time, I hated Donald Trump, but you start researching, because to me, as someone who didn't know anything about politics, just wanted to go back to work, it seemed at the time like he was the only guy talking about opening up the country again. And I know now that he wasn't, but it just seemed like he was, and I hated him so much, but I was so desperate to get back to work, and looking around me, everything was so insane that I started looking into him, and I was floored to realize how much I had been lied to. I mean, 2020 was the first time I realized that he did not say very fine people on both sides, including the Nazis, where he literally says, but not the white supremacists, because they should be condemned totally. I didn't know that for 3 years, and I'm a smart woman. But that's the level of lies and manipulation that the Democrat Party and the legacy media puts on all of us. And so then I started looking into it and realizing I'd been lied to a heck of a lot. And I proudly voted for him in 2020, which is something I never thought would have happened. And again, we're not a Trump organization, but that's where some of this research leads you to, because you do realize that there are a lot of lies. And I don't mind you not liking Donald Trump, but I wish that more Americans understood the actual truth, actual reality, as opposed to the lies and the manipulation. Because if he's really as bad as you tell me that he is, why are you lying about him? Why don't you say what he actually said? Yeah. And then I'll see for myself how awful he is. But it's kind of like the enemy of my enemy is my friend, you know? So that's why I walked away from the Democrat Party, and I've never ever looked back, because every day since it's just gotten more and more crazy, especially in LA. But I really admire you all for being here, whether you agree or disagree, because when I was a liberal, I don't think I would have sat through something like this. I wouldn't have had the wherewithal, so I think it's admirable. And one of my biggest regrets in life is not waking up sooner. So if you're someone who's like-minded and you're on the right track this young, I think that's also very laudable. So I applaud everyone in this room, really. Thank you.
So we were out tabling today, and we had different signs kind of talking about different issues, and at some point or another we all had crowds around us asking questions or debating or making comments about what we were saying. Gothics here had all the black girls around her, And I'm just curious, like, what were the conversations that were taking place? Like, what were you hearing?
I think most of the conversations were they just could not understand why I'm trying to say that everyone is a human. So the question was, do all Black lives matter, or no, what was it?
Do Black lives really matter?
Do Black lives really matter? And that's sort of, you can take it in two ways. The first is, okay, is a black human being a different, separate category? Meaning that if I have this skin color, am I supposed to have a certain type of worldview? Which, by the way, when I was holding up that sign, I had a few people go up to me and say, aren't you black? And that just implies that I'm supposed to think in this particular way. And so I would ask them, how am I supposed to think? And regardless of what comes out of your mouth, it's going to sound racist. So it's sort of a trick question. But then the other side of it is well, if you're saying that Black Lives Matter, and I'm assuming a lot of the people who I was talking to supported the Black Lives Matter movement, what is your stance on abortion? And that's when you can see the intellectual inconsistency. And then from that conversation, it sort of, we ran into this circle, this circular arguments of like, okay, where is your justification for saying that abortion is morally good versus morally bad? You have to have a standard, right? And so what is that standard? And the answers that I got was social consensus, the time of this generation, which basically just means that morality is always a moving target and it can always shift. And so we're back at square one. If morality is subjective, then why are you over here complaining that I'm holding a sign? Like, I just, it didn't make any sense to me. And that shows me the level of indoctrination that I see in these girls. And the thing is I used to think that way. I know I didn't mention it when I was doing my introduction, but I used to have severe Trump derangement syndrome. And like, I identified as a liberal, but I wouldn't say I was like one of those very militant black leftist, but I definitely thought that, Trump was against my people and my people would be enslaved, and I stopped speaking to my then Republican friend. And so, yeah, it was mostly just, circular arguments regarding the inconsistencies, but yeah, it was fun.
Well, when we created that sign, I mean, the reason why we made it is because we were like, okay, for so many years, we heard the left say, Black Lives Matter has kind of become this like religion and a mantra from the political left. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, the expectation is that if you are black, you're supposed to vote Democrat or you're supposed to be on the left. Okay, well, black people have been voting Democrat for generations. I mean, literally generationally. So if you guys are not that familiar with Walkaway, we've been around for 6.5 years, and kind of at the heart and soul of what we do, we're a testimonial campaign. So we encourage people to make videos or written testimonials and join our groups and share their stories. And I mean, we've gotten literally hundreds of, maybe thousands of videos from black Americans walking away over the last 6.5 years. And the thing that we hear again and again and again is that it's this generational decision. My parents voted Democrat, my mom voted Democrat, my grandmother voted Democrat. Like, I was always told that I should vote Democrat. Okay, great. So black people have been voting Democrat for generations, and yet we have mass incarceration of black men. And Kamala Harris, I think, probably Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, more than any two politicians in American history, have become synonymous with mass incarceration of black men and destroying the black family. Not to mention the fact that the Democrats' economic policies have kept many black communities in poverty. If you look at Chicago or Detroit or neighborhoods all across the country. So it just seems disingenuous to me that this side of the political aisle that seems to take ownership of what it means for a black life to matter probably has done more to harm black people than anybody else in the country. That's my opinion.
I think that's true of a lot of things, though. I think it's true for their policies for women, for their policies at the border. I mean, a closed border, a secure border is a humane, compassionate border. If people end up being harmed, I think minorities end up being harmed. It's very interesting. What I found is that everyone they claim to be for, they end up harming via their policies,
right.
And they end up manipulating, and they're not actually for women, and they're not actually helping women, and it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
It's amazing, though, the level of compliance. These people, their words mean nothing. That they spent a year saying Black Lives Matter and telling us that any policy that disproportionately affects people of color is systemic racism. And then not a few months later, they segregate people who will not inject themselves with experimental drugs, which at the time in New York, it was 75% of African Americans were unvaccinated. They segregated black people after saying Black Lives Matter. Couldn't go to a lunch counter, couldn't work your job, couldn't go anywhere in public. So if there's systemic racism, they're holding the banner of it.
Well, and it's also, I mean, if you look across the board at the minority communities, which I think the Democrats really feel like they have ownership of just about every minority community in this country, although I think they're quickly losing it, which is why they can't make the border open enough. You know, they're trying to, I think, flood as many people into our country illegally as they can because they're losing control of the people in this country that they feel they have ownership over, which is minorities. But what's, to me, I think, really revelatory and ironic as well as being tragic and horrible is that they claim to be the party that wants to bring like more equity, more freedom, more opportunity to minority communities that according to them are victimized and oppressed and downtrodden. However, if you happen to be a member of a minority community and you make the decision of your own free will to leave them, that is the time when they will actually actively go out of their way to try to destroy you and to try to ruin your life. And I think, I mean, well, you're a woman, but I was gonna say.
Internalized misogyny,
Yeah.
internalized homophobia.
Yeah, right.
I have externalized homophobia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Question. So here at Berkeley, I've heard some really crazy things from my fellow peers. I think among them,
Hmm?
Oh, Mike.
It's over there on the table.
Who got the mic?
Hey, give it.
I don't know.
I can grab it. Is this connected? Is this good? I've heard some crazy things here at Berkeley. I want to know what the rest of you heard here. I think the craziest I heard is in my American politics class. Someone arguing that abortion lowers crime, which is really just the most outrageous statement
Was
anyone
their
could ever
argument because they're aborting black babies?
Well, their argument is just, you know, it's really been shown that that wherever there's abortion, crime really tends to go down. And
Well, I mean, I know we're not, we have different opinions on abortion.
Yeah.
We're not an anti-abortion organization, but I do think it's important to note, speaking about the black community abortion, black babies are aborted at a rate 4 times that of white babies. So you do have to reckon with this. I mean, it's not really answer to your question,
Yeah.
but I don't think enough people realize this. If you are for minorities, if you are for the black community, and you're also for abortion, I think women deserve better than that. I think black Americans deserve better than that. And imagine where the black American population would be right now if we did not have women aborting their black children at that high of a rate. So just an interesting tidbit there, but I'll let
I was just
other
gonna ask,
people
what are your
take your
Berkeley? Do you guys have any Berkeley horror stories from
Oh,
today?
we were told we're genociding. We did a genocide. We're committing genocide.
I wasn't aware.
questions with signs.
I wouldn't say horror stories. I mean, I actually personally enjoy it when things get really dicey, so like to me it's super fun. But I would say probably there were 2 incidents. One was one of the students grabbed our signs that we had, grabbed them and ran away with them. And Mikey and I learned that it's time for us to go
Out
on.
of shape.
It's time to go on Ozempic because we tried as hard as we could to chase after them, and we did recover like 80% of the signs because he just kept
Only because he dropped them. That is no credit to us.
Well, it went on for like 3 blocks, and it was like uphill, and he was hiding behind a dumpster with our signs. And then he peeked out from behind the dumpster and saw that we were still, as best as we could, running toward him. And so then he started running again, and then he started just jettisoning the signs. And he made away with like 1 or 2, but we got the rest of them back. And the other was that there was like a 50-year-old gay student who just kept coming over and like blasting music and screaming and like going into hysterics. And at one point I think he hit her in the head or something, and he shoved into us. But
Always bitchy.
always, yeah.
I mean, we laugh about it, but it is really unfortunate. And this was not the majority of people, but it is awful that that's the response. I had a man, I mean, I've heard worse, but it was someone came up to me, an older gentleman, and said I'm a Nazi and a racist, because I was holding a sign that said stop